I'm Greg Sukiennik, and today I'll be making chicken thighs with yogurt tarragon sauce on Potluck Kitchen. So let's get going. Hi, I'm Greg Sukiennik. You might know me as reporter, editor of the Manchester Journal, working for Vermont News Media. For the Bennington Banner and the Brattleboro Reformer, as well as the Journal. I'm also a halfway decent amateur cook. And one thing about being in the reporting business is you have to make do with a smaller salary when you're starting out. So instead of eating out, you learn to cook. And so this is a dish that I've learned along the way. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a little mise en place, if you will. And this is a tarragon dish, and so let's start with some tarragon. I got this fresh. Now, I need about a tablespoon for the dish itself, and then I'm going to have some for garnish as well, because why not? So he said as he tried not to cut his fingers off. So I started as a reporter in 1993, and my first jobs I made $7 an hour and then $20,000 a year. I thought I was a wealthy man suddenly. So unfortunately, that kind of money, or fortunately really, that kind of money sort of necessitates that you learn some basic skills if you really want your paycheck to stretch. So one of those is cooking. And so I'd picked up some tips along the way from my parents, from my mom, my dad, my stepmom. But I also learned from some friends I was working with. And this isn't one of the dishes I learned from them. Those are mostly like chilies and stews and things you could turn into dishes that would make, that you could extend, have for leftovers. I think this is going to be enough. So I'm just going to put this aside here in this little ramekin and move to the side. So in cooking school, they call this mise en place, which is like having all your stuff ready to go before you're actually there. So I'm getting this done out of the way also because I want to use this cutting board for the chicken, and I'm not going to cross-contaminate with chicken. Anyone who's ever done that by accident knows why you shouldn't do that. Why? Because you're going to get really sick if you do. So now let's get onto the dill. In addition to the chicken dish I'm going to make, because I think the plate should have a little color, and the sauce I'm making is actually really good with vegetables. So I opted for some baby carrots. Could have gone with asparagus or green beans on that as well. It's a very versatile sauce. And to be honest, it's something I adopted from some folks who make a brand of Greek yogurt, Chobani. Actually, I found a video on their website several years ago with this recipe, and I've just kind of taken it and run with it since. So we'll enjoy that together. There's our dill. Can you ever have enough dill, Greg? No, you cannot. Sukiennik's Polish, so lots of Polish dishes involve a fair amount of dill. This really is not enough dill to fill this beautiful moo cow-looking container, but I saw this and said, I got to put something in that. You know, something with cow spots needs to be on television in Vermont, don't you think? So, all right. Now, so I've got some dill and some tarragon set up. I'll discard these guys for a moment. Now then, so this is a chicken dish, and since and the way we're timing this out, we probably ought to get the chicken going presently rather than later, because again, raw chicken, not good. So let's get this, we got a saute pan. Light for me, please. There we go. And once that gets a little hotter, I'm gonna use a little olive oil here. So what we have, let me just brush this off for a moment. What I have here are some supermarket boneless, skinless thighs. Now you could make this recipe with a bone-in chicken part. You could actually make it with chicken breasts as well. I chose thighs for a couple different reasons. One is they are cheaper. And again, coming from my experience where wasn't making a whole lot of money as a starting out reporter. And let's be honest, you know, with inflation the way it is, food's a little more expensive, so you want to stretch a dollar. And a lot of great cuisine in our world comes from, you know, gets its origins from, this is more chicken parts than I thought I had, gets its origins from taking cheap cuts and using them, you know, and elevating them. I'm gonna wash my hands, I'll be right back. Again, trying to fend off cross-contamination, because that is definitely not good for you. Now here's where I'm going to deviate from the plan just a little bit. I'm gonna take some of these thighs and cut them into smaller pieces. Usually it comes in a package of 4 thighs. I've got some sort of smaller pieces here, so I'm just gonna go with the flow. Now, why not chicken breasts today? You might ask. Good question. I don't know if you've noticed, but the chicken breasts I've seen at the supermarket lately are ginormous. I mean, you could feed a family of 3 with 1. And so I just, want to be able to do this dish in a way that I could show it to you without having to take up an hour of your time. Also, just for ease of use, because these will cook up really very quickly. Another key to chicken thighs is if they're more foolproof. Chicken breast you can dry out pretty easily whether you intended to or not. And being so large, it sort of requires you to do a little more butchery to get to where you're going. Chicken thighs, on the other hand, they've got a little more fat on them, a little more connective tissue going on here as well, and some fast twitch muscles. So that makes for a little more mistake, sort of goof-proof situation. So we're gonna brown our chicken thighs. I've put in enough olive oil here let's get the shimmering a little bit. Okay, I might have salt and pepper. I brought my own kosher salt here because it's the good stuff. And it's starting to smoke, so let's get this game going here. And crack some pepper. Wait a minute. Ah, that works better. Okay, and into the pan we go. All right, I should really be sort of laying these away from me. I did what I could. All right, so what we're looking for probably is 3 to 5 minutes on this to get kind of a healthy sear. I got some smaller parts that came in this. I didn't pre-select the thighs I was using for this adventure, so just gonna do the best with what I have. And so in they go. All right. Now while we're browning this, let's get the carrots going as well. So I got some baby carrots, and I'm just gonna steam them, which is, simple, easy, and awesome. So just a little water. And here we go. So this is just some simplicity itself. And it may seem like, well, can I really make a dish with a vegetable in time when I get home from work? Do I have the capacity and to do that? The answer is yes, you do, because some of this stuff is actually a lot easier than you thought. And steaming vegetables certainly, I think, fits under that label. Okay, let me fetch my tongs. Where were they? If you ever wonder what to get a cook in your life for a gift, spring-loaded tongs. Can't have enough of them. They're immeasurably handy. All right, so we've got, these are starting to brown. They might stick a little bit, but that's okay, because we're making a pan sauce here. And so having a little meat stuck to the pan is actually a good thing. So when you're talking about putting together meals that are a little elevated, but still allow you to come together quickly, the pan sauce certainly fits into that category. Because, really, it's just dead simple. You're sautéing a piece of meat pieces of meat in a pan, and once you've evacuated the meat out of that, you've got all this great sort of some fat and some scraps that are left over. That's called the fond. And so you take a liquid. It could be chicken broth. It could be wine. In this case, it's going to be chicken broth and some yogurt, some Greek yogurt. And it makes just a quick sauce that sort of takes what you've made and it elevates it quickly and pretty easily. And it's a weapon I like to use a fair amount in my cooking repertoire. So when I'm fancy enough to use words like repertoire. Let's see how we're doing. All right. Let this keep going. Now I'm just going to add a little salt and pepper to the other side of this. I had done that on one side. Unless you're barbecuing or the recipe calls for it, you can usually hit this stuff with salt and pepper while it's in the pan and nobody gets hurt. There we go. Now, sometimes I don't have it with me, but sometimes when you're browning chicken or steak or cut of meat, you might want to have, let's work with our temperature a little bit here. Let's bring that down a little bit. They got some spatter going on here. That's the chicken grease and the oil. So sometimes it's good to have, you'll see that at cooking stores, if you stop by Vermont Kitchen Supply, they probably have these. It looks like a pan, except it's kind of a flat piece of mesh. It just goes over the pan and traps some of the grease in the pan, so it's not spattering all over the place like it is right now. So yes, folks from GNAT, I will clean this up. Let's try flipping this. Okay, now, folks at home, if you can see, we've got a little browning going on here. It's a little uneven, but that's okay. Now, chicken, to be safe, should be cooked to 165 degrees. In a number of recipes, really what I've seen on dishes like this is, well, you just need to get it browned and you can finish it cooking it in the sauce. I'd rather kind of have it done rather than guessing. It was, you know, steak and even pork are a little more forgiving these days. I can't tell if that's brown or not. All right, let's just let that keep going. So, let me just kind of take you through what we're going to do, kind of outline that while we're waiting on our chicken to get to the right temperature. I pre-made some rice. Figured hopefully you might have another idea of how to cook rice. Didn't need to see that, and it eliminated a step. I use a Instant Pot for that because it's 4 minutes and it just makes consistent quality rice every single time. It's as easy as a day is long. It's equal amounts of rice and water, and there you go. It's kind of neat that the GNAT cooking studios have natural gas here. When I was learning to cook, a fair amount of when I got good at this was in Greater Boston and in the Berkshires. I had gas at both locations, so I'm a little out of practice with managing the heat. The one thing that it's really good with is controlling temperature, being able to get exactly what you want, and also being able to get it quickly. Electric ranges, they're good. They're better than they used to be, but I kind of like, I sort of like also the drama of playing with fire. I mean, who doesn't love that? So let's see. So let's start working ahead a little bit since we have some time. Recipe is going to involve deglazing the pan with some chicken broth. I'm going to use about half a cup or so. So let's just measure that out. And is it better if you make your own chicken broth, chicken stock? Yes, it is. But again, if you're doing this quickly, and the Instant Pot's really good for that, by the way, for making your own stock. But this stuff works. And it doesn't have to be schmancy. It could be the store brand. I use the store brand stuff all the time. Also, we'll be using about half a cup of this here Greek yogurt. Got this at a supermarket. So the reason I'm going to unload this now is I want it to come down a little closer to room temperature so that it's not quite so easy to break. Because there's nothing worse than making a cream sauce than suddenly having the globules of fat decide they're all going to go their own merry way and not be a cohesive whole that you wanted to look pretty on your plate. So we're going to sort of put that off to the side and let that sit at room temperature a little bit. Nothing's going to hurt that. Goodbye, oversized spoon. The other ingredient in our pan sauce, Dijon mustard. Again, the store brand does really well. In addition to adding terrific flavor to sauces, Dijon mustard also emulsifies them, sort of brings them together to make them creamier. So you get flavor and sort of a better mouthfeel, if you will. And it looks kind of pretty too. So we'll have that. Okay, let's have another look at our chicken thighs. Now, in terms of controlling temperature, I think the temperature more or less controlled me, because I think I turned this down a little too far when I saw the spatter pattern all over the place. Now, a piece of equipment that I find absolutely invaluable in the kitchen is a thermometer. Did I bring my thermometer with me today? No, I did not. So we're gonna do this the old-fashioned way and use a knife to see and make sure if this is done. So let me grab, well, we've already used this cutting board. We're not gonna use it again. I'll just use this one. And I'm not gonna use this knife for anything else either. So, just kind of do a little bit of a test here. Now, that's looking pretty good. How about you? That could use a little more time. Okay. I'm thinking we're gonna probably just let this go for another few minutes. Let me jack up the heat just a little more. Okay. So, let's see, cooking. Probably things changed for me as a cook when I started I'd say the seed was planted when I was working at a supermarket in the Pittsfield Lenox line called Guido's Fresh Marketplace. It's run by a couple brothers, and one of those brothers, Chris Mazzero, is a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. So the guy knows his stuff. And I thought I was fairly sophisticated as far as, as an 18-year-old, as sophisticated as an 18-year-old could possibly think they are. But what that's working with him and working with the ingredients that were available at this market just sort of kind of opened up some horizons. And really the rest of it I just kind of learned by experimentation and trying things every once in a while, and every once in a while finding an online recipe that I could give a swing at, like this one. See how our carrots are doing. Okay, those are starting to get a little tender. I find that there's sort of a fine line on carrots. You want them to have some give. You certainly don't want them to be mushy. There's very little worse than carrots that have been cooked within an inch of their lives. I actually think these things are done. I'm gonna take these off the heat. This gives me something to do. Let's plate these up. And this is simple. It's as easy as you thought it might be. Also, cooking teaches you to improvise, because nothing's ever gonna turn out completely perfectly. I'm sure everyone remembers the story about Julia Child dropping a chicken on the floor and then sort of running with it and telling folks that you just act like nothing ever happened. I don't plan to drop this chicken on the floor, or these carrots for that matter. I'm on. All right, this is starting to feel a little brown, so I think I better hustle. All right. There. Let's leave these for a moment, actually, and take these off let's evacuate the chicken to a plate. Yeah. So, it's kind of, I'd like to be fancy and say that I selected all these plates ahead of time for their aesthetic. Actually, I'm just grabbing what's ever available underneath here because things are moving pretty quickly all right. Yeah, this is brown. So let's run the heat down a little bit. And maybe not that much, Greg. And let's evacuate the chicken. Chicken, come with me. There's not much time. No, that's not how we're evacuating chicken. I will grant you this. Using breasts probably would be better visual. But if you're just going to mix this with rice on the plate, then, it's kind of not really a big hairy deal. Now, if you get in and look at this, we got all this lovely brown bits here on the bottom of the pan. That's your fond. And that is the secret to making a great pan sauce. So come along, this is gonna happen quickly. So first let's deglaze the pan, which essentially means pour some liquid into it and watch it bubble. Woo! There we go. Now, I like to have a wooden spoon for this. Do I have one? I do have something I can use. Hang on. By the way, if this is fun, and if you ever thought, gee, it'd be fun to cook on television, and you've got a favorite dish that you want to give a shot at, get in touch with GNAT about being a guest chef here on Potluck Kitchen. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, that's kind of loosened up enough. So what we want to do is we want to reduce that by about half. So that requires giving the spurs to it again. Come on. There we go. All right. In the meantime, okay, let's go back to, okay, there's our chicken. Let's go back to our carrots. Butter. So, because I think any good vegetable needs a little bit of a pat of butter to really sort of bring out its essential vegetable yumminess. Doesn't need much, just a little coating. And then, where's that lovely dill? Yes, and the lovely cow-themed. There we are. Okay. And let's just toss the coat. Get back in there. All right, you see our pan sauce is already boiling down a fair amount. So, now this is where it gets a little tricky, and part of the dance and the challenge of cooking is being able to bring all the elements together at the same time and not feel like you need to pull out all your hair. So, one thing I've done is I've cheated and made rice ahead. So here comes the microwave. All right, we'll let the science box take care of the rest. All right. This was prettier. I had in mind this is gonna look, the carrots are gonna look prettier. They'll be okay. All right, let's have a look at our pan sauce and see how we're doing. So this isn't a sauce yet. This is just sort of, we're just kind of getting a sense of whether it's thickened enough yet. Generally, what I'm told you're looking for is you want to see the liquid sort of coating the back of the spoon, and you want to see it sort of drizzling rather than dripping. We're not there yet, so we're just going to keep on keeping on. I should probably find another platter to put all this lovely food on. Let's use one big earthenware, Fiesta-ware platter, because that's pretty. Another great thing about cooking, you make the rules. And if this doesn't work, well, there's always Depot Street Burger. I think we are getting here. All right. I can do this. I'm a chef. Okay, it's about a minute more, I'd say. We're almost there, folks, for the moment where this all comes together and hopefully looks and tastes delicious is upon us. All right. I'm going to make an executive decision and cut the heat because we don't want a broken sauce. Now, here comes about a tablespoon of tarragon. I brought my dried tarragon with me just to show it to you. This is from Penzeys Spices. You can get, good spices lots of places, but I like Penzeys. I like the quality. You would use 1.5 teaspoons of this as opposed to a tablespoon of fresh, because the fresh is going to have, the dried spices are always going to have a little more intensity. That said, there's something about the way fresh tastes. Living here in the home of the world's best farmers markets, we know this. So a little tarragon and about a tablespoon of, I'm going to guess at it, tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a little more, and last and certainly not least, our Greek yogurt. Now you want to use Greek yogurt for this because it's got the thickness that required to actually make this work. Regular yogurt, it's going to be way too runny. So make sure you get Greek yogurt. Could be low fat or non-fat, doesn't really matter. You can get slightly more body out of more fat, but really the non-fat is terrific as well. And make sure it's plain. Don't buy the strawberry yogurt. You're not going to get a real good pan sauce out of that. Okay, I brought my own whisk. I like the silicone one for making sauces because this is a little less harsh. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. Another variation on this for making a pan sauce, mushrooms are always at home in something like this. Because that also adds a little body as well as some texture. And that looks pretty good actually, if I don't say so myself. Okay. So let's plate this up. All right. Here's where it all comes together. We find out if Greg's Potluck Kitchen is worth coming to, or if you should have gone out for takeout. All right, so, yes, all right. Let's start with some rice. Just kind of assemble that on the plate. When it comes to plating, I'm more rustic than schmancy, to be certain. And I really should have thought through having an orange plate and orange vegetables. Asparagus would have popped a lot more with this piece of Fiesta ware, but again, who cares? All right, let's take our chicken. We're gonna I'm just gonna assemble this somewhat adroitly here. Now this would be a lot more artful if we were using breasts. We'd sort of arrange them on a plate and drizzle the sauce over them and sort of have the meal of your dreams. I just don't want it to have this look like the meal of your prison nightmare. I think we're doing okay. See how lovely the browning is on that. That's nice. Okay. We'll call that rustic. And then we're going to plate ourselves some carrots, just to put these on the side. Just kind of bring everything together. There, it's got enough green, it's got enough dill that pops. Now, certainly, this is not, normally this would go on a, this is assuming that you would bring it out this way. You probably wouldn't. Probably put this all out in separate plates, but here we are. So let me just sort of, and here's our sauce. Okay. That just looks lovely. And how long did that take us? What, 20, 25 minutes? Not even? I'm gonna drizzle just a little over the carrots just to, there. And let's give it a try. Let's start with the chicken and the rice here. Get a piece here that has some fairly good browning on it. Just scoop up some rice on that. Yeah, that's good. The yogurt affords us a little sort of tanginess. I forgot to, in addition to body. So that's kind of it's a nice little twist. And it's a cream sauce without actually having to use heavy cream. Now let's give the carrots a shot too. Dab it in a little sauce. And those turned out well as well. I think I stopped them exactly when I should have. It didn't overcook them, which I was verging on that a little bit, so that's good. So there you go. Here's dinner. And I would obviously serve off this, not eat it all myself. And this is chicken thighs with a tarragon yogurt sauce and steamed dill carrots. Thank you for joining me on Potluck Kitchen. I'm Greg Sukiennik.